Kailisa, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. So we have been waiting for the briefing with Minister Ronald Lamola. Is that still happening?
Well, I can tell you this much, Bongiwe, quite a very interesting day here. As you know, that the SADC Council of Ministers is one of the very critical religious, pillars within the family of SADC, so to speak. Whether you're talking about the Troika, you're talking also about the MCO, the Secretariat of SADC. So far what we do understand is that that particular briefing by Minister Lamola will not happen, at least not tonight. And obviously, given the very gravity of the discussions. Obviously, quite a number of issues, Bongiwe, being discussed by the ministers. A lot of issues really facing SADC. If you talk about economic development, industrialization, really a mantra here. But of course, just in terms of the reflections for the day, I do have my colleague here, right here, the SABC, Sophie Mokoena. So, Sophie, you had an opportunity where you spoke to two ministers from Botswana and, of course, Zimbabwe. Interesting take, especially given the very thorny issues at hand.
Yes, you are correct, Kaya. I spoke to Minister of Foreign Affairs from Botswana, that is Penyo. And I also spoke to the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Zimbabwe, Minister Murirwa. And the two ministers, I focused on migration, industrialization, but also local issues as it relates to their respective countries. When you look at Botswana in particular, we looked at the issue of industrialization. As you know that Botswana wants to diversify its economy, a country that has relied so much on diamonds, and now they want to look at being broad. But what came out of that discussion on industrialization is that they are looking at assisting the region to establish manufacturing plants, and therefore ensuring that industrialization, issues of beneficiation do happen on the continent. You don't send this raw material outside of Africa, and they are willing to share the skills on agriculture. They spoke about their economy also reliant on agriculture, and they are willing to share the vaccines. When you look at foot and mouth disease, and they've already done that, that speaks to the continent, but also the region, ensuring that countries assist each other. On the issue of migration, I get a sense that there's a pushback in terms of saying we cannot have a situation where countries think they are island or they cannot be part of the region. Him saying it is important to have that migration, even though it will be regulated, it will be legal and within the confines of the law, but stay away from making migration as if it's a swear word. And also the same with Zimbabwe. The Foreign Affairs Minister of Zimbabwe really pushed back, because I also asked him that Zimbabwe in particular, there's an outcry that many Zimbabweans have left the country because of the challenges there. And him saying that they are not going to engage in megaphone discussion, but they will discuss with relatives, that is the member states, within the confine of the summit and behind closed doors. They don't want megaphones, but pushing back, saying that you must remember where Albert Luthuli was born, the man who led the ANC. We must remember many other leaders who were born in Eastern Cape, most of them, and now they find themselves having relatives in Zimbabwe. He mentioned different families, and we know there is a number of people, or a community of people from the Eastern Cape, including Basotho and many other nations around SADC region within Zimbabwe. And that is why Sesotho, Setswana, Sizulu, Sixhosa, and other languages in the regions are official languages in Zimbabwe. And on the issue of industrialization, for me, I ask him that the abuse of mineral resources of the continent, as it's being alleged, as it relates to Zimbabwe, how do you industrialize when ordinary people don't benefit? Again, pushing back, saying that there's no such a thing. They've been working with South Africa, whether you talk about issues that are related to platinum or the smelter companies working with South Africa. And lastly, on the thorny issue of constitutional amendment, again there he pushed back, saying that a constitution, it's a living document, it can be amended, and almost saying you elect your president through the parliamentary process, and that's what we wanted, but other people will hold a different view.
All right. Thank you so much indeed for that, Sophie. And of course, Bongwe, a number of issues. As you know, that we're just on the eve of the elections for Zambia. One of the members of SADC, obviously a number of speakers from the Executive Secretary, L.S. Makhosi, wishing the Zambians very well. As you know, that when you talk about the democratic principles, the issue of regular election, a very, very important feature there. But obviously we know that it's still going to be a number of issues being discussed by the leaders. As we know that there will be a lecture as well during the course of the week delivered by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, but also they will focus on a number of challenges facing the bloc, whether you're looking at peace and security in the eastern parts of DRC and Madagascar as well. So with that, back to you in Johannesburg.
All right, Kylie, as you speak about even regular, elections there, I remember a conversation you had with the Minister, Ronald Lamola. They're speaking about one of the countries whose name is behind you, Madagascar, making sure that the democratic processes there return as soon as possible. So let's continue then to monitor the developments of SADC through your eyes. Kylie Khumalo, their colleague, standing by in Durban for us, having covered the day there as the South African delegation has now assumed. The minister is now heading up the Council of Ministers for SADC. You'd remember South Africa is taking over the reins officially this year after having been an interim chair following the developments in Madagascar.